June 4, 1942. The Pacific Ocean is still dark when the engines begin to roar. Vice Admiral Chuchi Nagumo stands at the edge of his command, watching wave after wave of aircraft thunder off the flight deck into the pre-dawn sky. 108 bombers and fighters climbing toward Midway Atoll, carrying with them the full weight of Japanese confidence. The same carrier force that gutted Pearl Harbor 6 months earlier now sails with absolute certainty of victory. 4 fleet carriers moving in tight formation: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, the most concentrated naval air power the world had ever seen. To Nagumo, this is not a battle. It is a formality. His intelligence has told him what he wants to hear. Maybe 50 American fighters guarding the atoll. Obsolete bombers. No carriers within 1,000 miles. The Americans, according to every report that reached his desk, are completely unaware of what is coming. His fleet has spent 6 months proving its dominance across the entire Pacific. Wake Island, Rabaul, Darwin, Ceylon, everywhere the Kido Butai appeared, the enemy either collapsed or ran. There is no reason, no logical, tactical, strategic reason, to believe Midway will be any different. Below the flight decks, the hangar bays are a study in organized military power. Torpedo bombers loaded and waiting. Reserve aircraft fueled and armed, held back in case the search plane spots something worth hitting on the open water. The smell of aviation fuel hangs in the air. Fuel lines snake between aircraft. Ordnance carts sit ready near the elevators. Everything runs like a machine that has never once broken down. Nagumo feels the vibration of engines through the soles of his boots and feels nothing but certainty. The first crack in that certainty arrives at 7 in the morning. The strike leader over Midway radios back with an assessment that no one wants to hear. A second attack is needed. The American defenses are stronger than predicted. Their fighters have been more aggressive than anyone anticipated. Nagumo processes this and makes a decision. The reserve planes currently loaded with anti-ship torpedoes will be switched over to land attack bombs. On 4 separate carriers, ordnance crews begin tearing apart what they had just finished building. Then the delayed reconnaissance report arrives. A single search plane, launched 30 minutes late because of a mechanical problem, has finally reached its patrol sector. 10 enemy surface ships spotted to the northeast. Nagumo's officers lean over the plotting table. 10 ships could mean anything. Cruisers, destroyers, supply vessels. The pilot says nothing about carriers. But the mere presence of an American naval force this close to his position changes the calculation entirely. Nagumo reverses his previous order. Stop the rearming. Switch back to anti-ship configuration. Prepare for a surface engagement. What follows on those hangar decks borders on catastrophe before a single bomb has even fallen. Crews who were removing torpedoes stop mid-task. Land attack bombs already loaded onto some aircraft have to be pulled back off. The heavy Type 91 torpedoes need to go back on. But the elevators are occupied moving planes. There is no time to properly return the loose ordnance to the magazines below. Bombs get stacked against hangar walls. Fuel lines stay connected to aircraft being serviced. Aviation gasoline drips from quick-release valves that nobody has time to properly seal. The ships are no longer just warships. They are warehouses full of explosives waiting for a reason to go off. Then the second message comes from that same search plane. The pilot has kept watching. What he has now identified, unmistakably, is a carrier. One American carrier operating with that surface group. The word hits Akagi's bridge like a physical blow. And now Nagumo faces the kind of decision that separates commanders from legends. His Midway strike force is already on its way back. Low on fuel, some planes shot up, every single pilot expecting to land on a friendly deck. If he launches an attack against the American carrier right now, those returning planes have nowhere to go. They will ditch in the ocean. But if he waits, if he recovers his men first, he hands the Americans time. Time to find him. Time to strike first. Nagumo chooses his pilots. The carriers will recover the Midway strike, rearm and refuel everything together, and then send one massive coordinated blow against the American fleet. It is the doctrine he has drilled and practiced and refined. It has worked every single time before. All 4 carriers turn into the wind to begin landing operations. The flight decks fill with returning aircraft, wings nearly touching. The hangars below are packed with armed and fueled planes stacked in tight rows, waiting for the elevators to bring them topside. Torpedoes rest against bulkheads. Bombs sit in handling carts. The carriers have become floating powder kegs, and nobody on board fully grasps what that means yet. American torpedo bombers hit first, and they are slaughtered. Wave after wave of obsolete devastators comes in low and slow against Nagumo's combat air patrol. The Japanese Zero fighters tear them apart with ruthless efficiency. Not a single torpedo connects. Every Japanese eye on every Japanese ship is pulled downward, watching the surface-level carnage, watching American courage being extinguished one aircraft at a time. The last torpedo bomber hits the water just after 10 in the morning. On Akagi's bridge, officers allow themselves a moment of relief. The attack has been beaten back. Just minutes more and the carriers will have all their planes aboard, armed, fueled, and ready to end this. Nobody looks up. At 19,000 feet, 3 squadrons of Douglas SBD Dauntless dive bombers have found the Kido Butai at the single most devastating possible moment. The combat air patrol is at sea level, still chasing the last torpedo bombers. The carrier decks are packed with aircraft waiting to launch, and the men below are thinking about victory, not survival. The Dauntless push over into their dives. Nobody on the Japanese ships sees them until they are already screaming through 12,000 feet with no way to stop what happens next. Kaga takes 3 bombs in rapid succession. The first kills her captain on the bridge. The second detonates inside the forward elevator shaft. The third lands precisely where the frantic rearming had left loose ordnance stacked against the hangar walls. What happens inside Kaga in the following seconds is beyond the vocabulary of conventional battle damage. Torpedoes cook off in chain reactions. Aviation fuel explodes in massive fireballs that roll through confined spaces faster than men can run. Armed aircraft on the hangar deck detonate, their own bombs and full fuel tanks feeding an inferno that punches upward through the flight deck and throws men and machinery into the open sky. Within 90 seconds, a functioning warship becomes an uncontrollable fire. Akagi takes 1 bomb. Just 1. It punches through the flight deck and detonates in the upper hangar, where dozens of fully armed, fully fueled aircraft are waiting in neat rows. The blast wave travels the length of that enclosed space like a shock wave through a tunnel. Everything it touches, it ignites. Torpedoes detonate. Fuel tanks rupture and burn. Damage control parties rush toward the flames and are physically driven back by heat so extreme it warps structural steel. Nagumo stands on his bridge and watches his flagship eat itself alive from the inside out. 2 miles away, Soryu receives 3 direct hits in 60 seconds. Her situation is identical. Packed aircraft, loose ordnance, open fuel lines. Her hangar deck becomes an oven. Explosions tear holes in her hull below the waterline. The Pacific begins pouring in. 5 minutes. From the first bomb hitting Kaga to all 3 carriers burning without any hope of control, 5 minutes. The most powerful carrier strike force ever assembled, the fleet that had terrorized an entire ocean for 6 months, is gone in less time than it takes to read a briefing report. Nagumo transfers his flag to the cruiser Nagara and watches the rest of the day dismantle whatever hope remained. Hiryu, the one carrier untouched in the initial attack, manages to find the American carrier Yorktown and damage her badly. For a few hours it feels like something might be salvaged. Then, just after 5 in the afternoon, American dive bombers find Hiryu. For bombs, the last carrier of the Kido Butai joins her sisters in flames. Rear Admiral Taman Yamaguchi, commanding from Hiryu's bridge, sends his crew away and stays aboard with his captain. Both men understand that what has been lost at Midway cannot be measured in ships. Kaga capsizes and sinks by evening, taking 800 men down with her. Soryu follows. Akagi drifts burning through the night until Japanese destroyers finally torpedo her at dawn. Hiryu goes down the next morning with Yamaguchi and his captain still aboard. Shortly after 2 in the morning on June 5th, Admiral Yamamoto issues the withdrawal order from his flagship hundreds of miles to the west. The invasion is canceled. The entire operation is abandoned. For the first time since Pearl Harbor, a Japanese fleet is running away from American power. The numbers that staff officers compile through the night tell a story that will define the rest of the war. For fleet carriers lost, 307 aircraft destroyed, over 3,000 men dead, and most irreplaceable of all, 121 experienced carrier pilots gone, veterans whose skills had taken years to develop and cannot be rebuilt on any accelerated wartime schedule. Nagumo stands on Nagara's bridge as dawn rises on June 5th and says almost nothing. The men who know him see something in his face that was not there the morning before. He commanded the most powerful naval strike force in the world when this day began. He commands a retreating fleet now, sailing back to Japan to explain to the Naval General Staff and ultimately to the Emperor how 5 minutes of American bombs ended 6 months of seemingly unstoppable conquest. The war would continue for 3 more years. Japan would win battles and fight with genuine ferocity and courage. But what was settled at Midway was never unsettled. The Japanese admirals who watched their carriers burn understood something in that moment that very few of them were willing to say out loud. They were not watching a setback. They were watching the end written in fire and black smoke above the Pacific. The Kido Butai was gone, and without it, so was any realistic path to winning.